Hello, and welcome to the Digital Workspace Works podcast. I'm Ryan Purvis, your host, supported by our producer Heather Bicknell. In this series, you'll hear stories and opinions from experts in the field, stories from the front lines, the problems they face and how they solved them, the areas they focused on from technology, people and processes, to the approaches they took that will help you to get to the grips with the digital workspace inner workings.
Plugged my headphones into the microphone. But sometimes it is where I need to restart, so I just decided to do it.
Well, I was going to ask you, is everything plugged in? But you couldn't hear me. So yeah.
That's usually step number one. No, I had deconstructed my work setup because I had to work from here, there, and everywhere at the end of last week. So just needed to, plug all the things back in, and I missed one.
No, that's totally fine. Totally fine. We'll do it. How's your power situation now? All stable?
Yeah, so it came back late last night. And it was supposed to be out. They were telling us until Monday or Tuesday night. So it was kind of a pleasant surprise, just heard the air conditioning come back on and some lights and whatnot we'd left on came back on. So finally, we had been out since Thursday morning. So it's a long time.
Yeah, you see, when you get used to your power going out, you'll have a routine where you'll go and turn all the light switches off. Nothing worse than the 4 a.m. wake up in the middle, when all the lights turn on in the house because you forgot to turn them all off.
So, but you have a generator, right?
Yeah, we do. The irony on that is, as I bought the generator, 2 months ago. I think I've used it once, and that was to set it up. We've never used it again. It's very common here to have solar panels and an inverter. When I say it's common, guys who've got the money will put it in. Because the generator is bloody noisy. And then what they do is they have batteries as well, they'll store, the solar generated power in the batteries. And then when Eskom, which is the national provider, goes offline, they don't even notice that they've gone offline. And they'll have the main stuff on that circuit. So they'll have TVs and lights, and one or two guys have the ability to boil a kettle and that sort of thing. But usually it's just so you have the lights and you can watch TV and your internet stays on. What I did is I put a UPS in that keeps the router going and the Wi-Fi. And then I've got enough time to go start the generator up. And that generator is tied into the house. So that the minute I turn that on, we have everything accessible, but you obviously go and turn off high draw things. So you turn off your underfloor heating, you turn off your air cons, and then you can probably get away with doing the microwave and the kettle at the same time. But that's about it. You can't use your geyser or your boiler, whatever you guys call it. But that's it. It's 6 kilowatts, 7 kilowatts, something like that. Uses about 25 liters of gas, petrol.
Yeah, we had, so like I had mentioned, it was a mass outage. There was one generator going in the neighborhood. We went for a walk and I was like, oh yeah, I can hear, they're so loud. At least this one was the gas powered generator. Could hear it from a few blocks away for that house, but I think we might look into one for the winter because it's not so scary to, lose your power when it's, pretty warm and the temperature's okay. But dead of winter would be a whole different story.
Yeah. So when we get back to the UK, that's one of the things that I want to put in is the inverter and the battery, or they actually use a capacitor now as well. And then you can also feed back into the grid, which is a lot of what we've now just made legal in the country, here at least. Because you can hear it here in this complex. The minute the power goes out, you have about 6 generators kick up, and it sounds like a bunch of tractors doing drag racing.
Yeah.
As they pull more power, they all go, so it's not the most pleasant experience. But my expectation in the future is we're all going to have power problems, and we should all have some sort of redundancy.
Yeah, I think I'd like to go the solar battery route eventually. It's just expensive, at least where I am, to get that going. And then you can sell power back to the grid, but they barely pay you anything for it. It's really not designed to, they don't want you doing it, essentially, the power companies.
Yeah, which I always think is such a short-sighted view. If you think about let's use the most common example now. If you look at what blockchain is doing and distributed ledgers and all that kind of stuff, that's decentralizing banking. But it's still it's decentralizing, but in a way that you can still centralize it. And I think power is a good example of something that you can have generation from anywhere, and you can still consolidate it. And I've been fascinated. But we've been in the country now 9 months, and there's probably been 20 days of bad weather. And even on those bad weather days, and I'm talking clouds and rain and stuff, there's still been sunlight. You still had sunshine. So the ability for a house to generate solar power is there. So I've been saying to guys that the investment would pay for itself quite quickly, because you would have a constant stream of power. You don't have to give it back to the grid. You just don't have to pay them. Because you'd have the battery storage and the power and for the nighttime. But it is expensive. We're talking $5,000 to $10,000, I guess, if I had to estimate it, for an entry-level system. And I don't know if you've got a pool, but most of these guys have pools and stuff like that. So that, you're adding a little bit extra because you've got to cover the heat pumps and all that. So, it's a project. I wouldn't say you have to do it all in one go. Like we've got the solar panels in the UK house, because that's now there by law. You have to have 1 kilowatt in any new build.
Huh.
But you probably need, I'm guessing you probably need about 5 kilowatts if you want enough to do the lights and the TVs and all that, and still charge your batteries. Because we don't have a pool or anything like that. But yeah, I think it's a worthwhile investment in the long term.
Yeah, definitely would help with that peace of mind and, not losing everything in the fridge, which was a bummer. Gonna start from scratch there. We looked at a house when we were on the market that had a pool. It was the first house that we toured, and that's pretty unusual, especially for sort of the price range we were looking at. Some luxury homes might have an indoor pool, like some infinity kind of thing, which is, in my ideal dream house is what I would want, because outdoor pools here, they get, the season's pretty short for the maintenance you'd have to do. It's just most people just choose to go to a public pool or some country club or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, the UK is the same. The area we live in, if you had to look on Google Maps, you'll see a couple pools, like maybe one pool for maybe every 10, 12 houses. If you look here in Joburg or Durban or even Cape Town, you probably find 8 or 9 houses out of 12 would have a pool that you could visibly see. And it depends on how much space you've got in your garden and stuff. But because the weather is typically so hot all the time, you want to have those sorts of things. But the other thing, you also have cheap labor. You can hire a gardener that can go after the pool, and it'll cost you very little for what your income is. So that's the other reason why guys do it, because the maintenance isn't that bad, because either they've got a gardener that does it or they're paying a pool service that comes in as part of doing the garden anyway. So the cost is not high. And you, as I say, using it all the time. Whereas in the UK, the weather's not consistent enough that you get that. What people do, which we'll do as well, is you get a hot tub and you put the hot tub in with a cover, and then that's good enough for summer and winter, and it's a really small body of water.
Yeah, they were selling these like inflatable hot tubs on Amazon for a few $100, and I don't know how good they were, but I was tempted the other week. So
the one we used, which is not bad, is called the Lazy Spa, and you get we had a Las Vegas one which seats 6 people or something. And actually, a friend of ours had one, we bought it on his recommendation. And he's had his one for about 5 years now. We had ours for about 3, and then I damaged the plastic, because the whole thing is like what do you call it? What's the word?
Inflate.
Yeah, it's an inflatable molded plastic. So you basically pump it up, and you pump it up inside a leather shell. So the outside is leather that helps you keep the heat in. And then you've got the inflatable stuff in the middle, and then you've got a motor that plugs onto it, which gives you your bubbles and does the filtration of the water. We kept ours, as I said, for about 3.5 years, and I don't know how it happened, but I basically slashed it. And then, to repair that's almost impossible. We must have repaired it about 10 times in a month, and I just said to my wife, you know what? For what we spent on and the use, we'll just buy another one, or we'll get a proper one. And then we came back here on holiday, and we haven't been back since.
Yeah.
But they're very popular, and you can get they're quite fancy now. They'll have the IoT stuff built in now, so you can have your app that runs the thing. Because one of the biggest pains with it, which I found, is that when we had it in our first house, it was in a shady spot, so it never got warm, and you'd spend an absolute fortune of time and money warming the thing up with the heater. And then in our new house, it's directly in the sun from about 11 o'clock in the morning till in the summer till 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night. So it's always decent temperature. But your challenge is you don't necessarily want that thing to run all night long heating, because it doesn't need to. It only needs like 3 hours. So the app looks quite good now, because now you can set the schedules so that it can actually start 4 a.m. it can kick on, and then it can warm it up. Or if it drops below a certain temperature, it can warm it up. So I'm quite keen to see where those go now. And our neighbors have just put one in, and it's got lights and music, and it ties into your Spotify account and all that kind of stuff. So it's really geeky.
Yeah.
But
that's cool.
Yeah.
It's amazing that you can get nowadays. Some of the home IoT stuff is really cool, as long as it works. But even like our air filter has we can get an app to say what its status is. It's just so useful. It's like, instead of just setting a date on a calendar and having to remember, and having that all integrated is so convenient. As long as you don't put it on your main Wi-Fi, you got to put it on a separate network that's you're not worried about the insecurity of IoT. Just streaming, just speaking, phoning home all the time.
Well, that, and you just don't know. These guys build it so quickly; they don't think about security. I mean, remember we had that chat with Lorik ages ago, or maybe that was the episode we lost. I can't remember. But we were talking about how it's so easy to build one. Just an IoT, whatever it is, some sort of sensor. But they avoid things like encryption, or they'll phone home back to China, and you don't know what they're sending. And in the same token, you don't know what they'll receive. So you don't really want them on your main Wi-Fi network that you and your family are using. You want them on a segregated Wi-Fi. So like all my security cameras are on a separate network, even though they're from a reputable, well-known provider. I just didn't want to take the risk that if they go breached, then my Wi-Fi is breached, my internal network. And even my I've got smart lights for some of the rooms. Same thing. They're all on the same network. So if something goes wrong there, it's like, well, it doesn't matter. It's not much to get there. You can see what's on my cameras outside. It's a big deal. But if you think about like guys doing transactions, on their internet banking or something, and someone's managed to put a packet sniffer on the IoT device, because some of those IoT devices actually have got pretty good storage and pretty good processing power, at least to capture packets. You don't need much. And if it's not encrypted properly, then you've got a hole. So that's my advice, definitely.
For sure. Well, if you have some time, I can tell you about my iPhone workday.
Sure. Yeah. Tell me. I've got half an hour.
Okay, great. So, so we've had, we did that episode ages ago about your experience working on an iPad all day. So I thought I would share my iPhone example, scaled down even more. So I think it's important to consider the hardware when you're talking about working all day on a phone, both for screen size and just how much of a charge does it hold. So I have an iPhone 11 Pro. So it's still pretty good on battery life. Screen size for me is pretty good, but it's not a max or something where it would have given me even more. So I think the first key that I learned, if you're going to be stuck working on your phone all day, particularly if you're in a power outage, which was my situation, is that you need some good battery packs, the ability to juice up frequently, because working on your phone, especially off Wi-Fi, just drains it so quickly using, I was using Teams mostly, but my battery just tanked, and usually I can go more than a full day on a charge. That was lesson one. Lesson two is that I think if I had to go back and maybe restart my day planning to work on my phone, let's say I was traveling or something, I probably would download more native apps, because I was trying to get by mainly with calling in, which cannot be ideal if you can't find the right dial-in number, or if there's not one that you can that has all of the the pounds and the stars and the meeting codes embedded in it, so it's just a one click. And
you talk about, sorry, when you say dialing, you talk about dialing to Teams, because I find Teams is especially bad at this. I
was dialing in to Zooms because I had Teams, so I could join for that. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, the reason why Teams I find quite bad is that unless you've got a calling plan associated with your account, you don't actually get the call-in numbers for a Teams meeting.
Yes. I way back in the day, I had to ask IT to get me. I didn't have that. And then whenever I needed to make a meeting with someone external, and, if they needed a dial in, especially when Teams, I think, was less popular. So fewer people had it. It was just like kind of that inconvenience of, here's my system for us to meet on. I was just embarrassed that I couldn't even send people a number they could use if they didn't want to download Teams. So thankfully, they resolved that for me. So
because the second thing I find, which is frustrating, maybe just because I'm on a Mac now, is when you look at the meeting invite from Teams, there's so many links, and they're not clean links. They're like just messy, long things. I don't know which one you're clicking on. So sometimes I click on the wrong link, which is the link for managing the meeting. Sometimes I click on the link which takes you to the page of all the numbers. I find it's not very clean. Anyway, so you're telling more about the native apps. So which other apps do you think you need to have native?
Well, I think it probably would have downloaded Zoom, and then I was kind of working off the browser for all my Office apps. It's obviously my personal phone. So I haven't, downloaded all I think if I downloaded the Office app, Zoom, I would have been in a much better spot just for ease of transitioning between things during the workday.
Yeah. Yeah. And what signal did you have? A 3G signal, a 4G signal?
So, yeah, it's funny. So, my house was built in the late 1940s, post World War II, and there was a shortage of wood as a building material. So the outside's actually steel panels. So signal inside the house is poor, but it doesn't matter most of the time because I have Wi-Fi. So I was working off of like 1 to 2 bars. So I kept going outside, especially for meetings, just to get a better signal. So another pro tip would be, if you're going to take outside meetings, wear sunscreen, because I didn't. Because I was just trying to make it work, going in and out, trying to find a signal. I was like, I'll be outside, 30 minutes, an hour for a call. I always wear SPF on my face, but the sun was strong that day and got a little bit toasted on my arms, got a bit of a farmer's tan now. So that's fun.
Yeah, that's a good lesson.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think if you're, a knowledge worker, obviously, I think in a pinch, you can do a lot on a phone, at least answer emails and take meetings. I mean, I guess that's not shocking. Business folks have been doing that for quite some time, but even just, working through Teams, there's just a lot you can do, but the more your meetings depend on things like screen share. I think that was the biggest pain with Zoom, actually, is the Zooms I was on, people really wanted to share screen, which at that point, it's like your contribution and understanding of the meeting is super limited if you can't see what's going on.
Well, I was going to say to you, the thing that I think about often now when we're designing something is we've got to, and it's not for everything, obviously, but you need to think about someone's going to look at this on a mobile screen. Now, if you say, for example, sending an email, very rarely should you send an email that doesn't fit on a mobile screen, some more than 5 lines per se, and having lots of attachments and pictures. I mean, there's other ways to do it that are probably more beneficial. But I do it sometimes as well, where I'm sitting downstairs and I'm late for a meeting because I'm coming down for coffee or whatever. So I'll start the meeting on my phone because that's the nearest thing I've got with me. I've got my headphones on, and I'll walk up the stairs to go join off my device. And often that's when they're sharing something, and you sort of you're zooming in and you're looking, and
you can't see what's on the screen.
You spend so much time looking and zooming that you're actually not even listening to what they're saying. So, yeah, I hear your point about preparation. I get sunburned a lot because I go for walks during the day, so I'm guilty on that front too. And why did you not connect your laptop to your phone? Was that already dead battery-wise because you've been out offline for 2 or 3 days?
It was dead, and my work laptop, I don't know if it can hold charge for an hour at this point, so it was kind of just a non-option.
But you know what I found really funny about that? So was your whole area down? Whole of Ann Arbor?
Not all of it, but a good portion of folks, yeah.
And your office didn't have a generator?
So actually, I could have gone into the office, and I thought about it, but I'd mentioned some family stuff that I was dealing with. So I had a family member who's in the hospital now, not with COVID, but something else contagious. Yeah. So I was like, and I'd been around her, so I was like, well, it's not COVID. I don't have COVID symptoms. I feel fine, but just this, I'm like, is this a lesson from, being in a pandemic, that if I've been around someone with something contagious and we're sort of still learning about what they have and they're not doing particularly well, I was like, I'll just not go in because I wasn't the only one without power. So I know more people were going in. We're sort of on a bit of a hybrid model right now. So people have the option to go into the office. But I decided to not go in, especially the first day that I worked on my phone. Yeah.
That's very responsible. I mean, and I think that's a good lesson we should all learn from this pandemic is that, rather isolate when you've got something than go in and be a hero because you actually do more damage than good often. The reason why I was asking the question was, potentially you could have gone in and put the devices into charge overnight and picked them up the next morning. But that's why we have the generator. It's just purely to. I'll tell you a funny story. So we go down to my uncle's house in the mountains a couple of weekends ago, and we went down on the Thursday because this was after I was recovering from COVID, and my doctor sort of said get out of Joburg for a bit because the pollution's so bad and help your lungs, etc. So we drive down on the Thursday and we get the afternoon and we have a normal sort of family night, and the Friday we spend the whole day out and. We've got a lot of devices for the kids. iPads to entertain them, and I had my devices with me for my stuff. And we're sitting having dinner on the Friday night, and the power goes out. Now, we're in the middle of the mountains, so there are houses around, but there's not a lot. So you go look outside on the balcony, and you don't see a lot of light. So you think, oh, it's a general failure. Everyone's out because it's just dark, and you can just see the stars and that. So we all go to bed, and we say, oh, they'll probably fix it in the morning. So wake up next morning. Now nothing's charged, so all our devices that we, I've been charging devices off my laptop, off my iPad, etc. So we've a little bit of power, but not much. So in the morning we wake up. My uncle's got a very fancy 4x4, so we start that up and basically start charging all our devices off his car. He can take like 20 devices off his various connections and whatever, because he goes into the bush where there's nothing. So he's got all the gadgets. He's got solar panels and all that built on the truck. It's very fancy. So we start charging everything, and all the girls go out for a walk, and then it's just us in the house, and we're playing with his drone because that's the only thing that's got power, and we're waiting for the electrician to come. And we're waiting, and then we suddenly think, let's go check if anyone else has got power. So he walks up to the one house, and they've got power, so it's only really us that are offline. So he it says he's already checked the circuit board and that. He says everything's working. So we're busy playing with the drone, Now, the car's been running for about an hour and a half. We obviously have minimal power left on the laptops and stuff to charge things. And the electrician rocks up. He says, have you guys reset the mains? We're like, well, he said he had. He says, no, well, you've got to pull them down and push them up, then it works. So that's what he did. He had to push it down and then turn the switch back on. And we had power. So we were planning for a whole day of no power, going out to get battery packs to go and charge things, because you don't want to be in the middle of nowhere without cell reception and being able to call anybody in that. But in the end, it was just a simple switch that hadn't been turned the right way.
I mean, for the better. I wish that had been our case. But yeah, it's always nice when just getting it back on last night, even though we've been out for so many days at that point. It was a pleasant surprise, because I was not I was like, oh God, another work day or two. And so Thursday I worked on my phone. Yeah. Friday I went to my sister's. She just moved, so they didn't have anything set up on Thursday. Friday their place has power, so we were able to work from there on Wi-Fi. But I was, my laptop was on a couple boxes, and I was like sitting on this little stool, and it was still very a challenging work day, but much better than the one before it. But now I have my whole setup back, and I'm very grateful for it. And it just makes you, just really realize, I mean, a lot of it, so much is just screen real estate, a good Wi-Fi connection and screen real estate gets you pretty far.
No, you're spot on. I mean, I will sometimes take my laptop downstairs and work off there. And I do it only if I want to look at something like singular, like I just want to read a document or I just want to write something. But the minute I know I've got to if I need two screens to analyze something or whatever, then I prefer to come upstairs, stay upstairs and stand. But this office is quite cold, even though it's 25 degrees outside. So, I like to get the warmth. But I've been experimenting now with the iPad Pros. You can use that as a second screen. And that actually works quite well, because they're both mobile and it's just big enough that you can put something on there and you can look at it, but you can actually do the work on your laptop. So that's a nice mobile solution.
Mm-hmm. I've seen another, I don't remember the brand, but another kind of like, it looks like a tablet, but its function was just to be a second screen for your laptop. I feel like that.
That sounds like something I saw on Instagram.
I've seen it. Someone I knew had one that I saw not too long ago, but I don't remember the details of it, but it was essentially like the size of an iPad and just a second, mobile monitor if you're working off a laptop.
Yeah, because often all you want, like I was doing some work the other night to set up a VPN. And all I wanted was the article that I was looking at on the second screen, so that I didn't have to keep switching between the two, which you don't need much. I mean, this is an 11-inch, so that's big enough. Although I have to say, after using this as 11-inch for a long time, I am keen on getting the bigger one. Mm-hmm. So the one is slightly better, but we'll see where this all goes.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, this week's episode is delayed, but I'll get it up. I'll edit one and get it up today. Maybe this one. We'll see.
Well, what did we discuss a couple of weeks ago? It would be nice if we had a couple in the background that you'd already done, just in case.
Yes. It's just been a really crazy busy couple of months here with moving house and work and everything. So
no, totally understand. I'm not obviously giving you abuse, but
yeah.
But half of this is these situations. You can always look at them and go, if only I planned better or had a pre set up a few things just in case.
Yeah. Well, like I told you, this is the longest of my, longest power outage of my life. So I was not adequately prepared for that many days. We had water, we had city water. So when I was growing up, we had well water. So power going out was a bigger issue in that regard. So.
Well, I mean, with us, even in the Berg, the issue there was the minute that power went off, none of the geysers filled up, so we had no hot water the next morning for showers. Mm-hmm. The other issue was, it's the same at home. It's why we bought the generator. Is with my daughter and that, if she needs a bottle, we need hot water, and when it's going to happen. So like we have an app that tells us when we're going to have load shedding. So you can sort of plan for it. So we will sit there like an hour before the power goes out, filling up flasks of boiling water and cooking dinner and all that kind of stuff. But sometimes you don't have that. We had one situation where it went off on just went off on the Thursday afternoon, and it was supposed to go off the Friday afternoon, and we hadn't planned anything. And then you're running around trying to get what you can from those that do have power. So you're at least a little bit prepared for the night.
Yeah. Yeah, it's they were like they set up a power station at one of the high schools. So if there are always options for
that's pretty good.
Yeah, at least around here for things that if we needed those resources we could have sought them out. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we have a natural gas hot water heater. So actually, which is super old, it's actually past its expected lifespan. So it could die on us anytime. It needs to be replaced. But it was actually nice because we still had hot water. So I don't know. Now I'm like, well, do we want to, if we replace it with electric, then we wouldn't have had hot water. And we also have a gas stove, so we were able to use that, and we want to get induction. So.
Yeah. So it's interesting. A lot of guys here are moving to gas where they can. But this is because of, infrastructural issues. You don't want to be too reliant on ESCOM here. So people can, where they've got the power, because of gas in some areas is still available with the pipes, etc. Mm-hmm. That saying, we're in the UK. The house we've got now is not on gas for the hob. It's an induction hob, and this house here that we're in now also is an induction. And I must admit, I prefer induction to gas from a cooking point of view. So I guess you got to weigh up your options. To what you want, but that's also quite a hefty thing to change out. So that's another factor on its own.
Yeah, I think it'll be worth it long term, but not something that I'm going out to switch tomorrow. I was grateful to have. It was a pleasant surprise, just with that. All I really lost out on was Wi-Fi and then charging things. So,
but losing Wi-Fi now is like losing water.
Yeah,
that's your job in a lot of senses. I mean, the reason why we've invested in so much is that I can't afford not to be online.
Yeah.
When there's a power failure, Wi-Fi still stays, or internet connection still stays live, so I can still use it. So we just spent the money to make sure we could survive. Because my nearest sort of working place is a good half an hour, 40 minutes drive away. So it's not like it's easy to get somewhere else to carry on working. So, but touch wood, haven't had to use it yet. So that's a good sign.
Yeah, fingers crossed there.
No. Cool. Anything else you want to cover since we're here?
No, I think that encapsulates that experience. Hopefully don't have to put my phone to the test as a solo work device again anytime soon. But it allowed me to work that day. If I hadn't had that, I wouldn't have been able to. So.
Well, and I think it's something that I was quite chuffed at, when we had the situation in the mountains, that all my devices that I could use as a battery, I was able to use as a battery. So I could plug in my iPad, or I used that as a battery to charge the more critical device, which was the phones. Same with the laptops. The more critical device was the phones and the iPads, etc. And then, when power came on, you could always recharge the bigger batteries. So you've got to have some sort of cable strategy as well, I guess.
Yeah.
Audio go bag.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt to be prepared, for sure. So.
Nope, not at all. Okie dokes. Well, it was good to catch up, and we still have to chat about those other two things that we talked about.
Yep.
The third working place, and what was the other one? It was the hosted.
Windows 365. Yep.
Yeah, so I was trying to get on the trial, but the trial's already full. But we will probably do it for our guys working for us that are in remote locations. I think I'm actually quite excited for that. I know that sounds counterintuitive because I don't really like the Windows operating system, but I'm excited for the hosted desktop.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how you get on with it, because it's got a lot of the same advantages of WVD, or AVD, but it just simpler to get up and running and manage, it seems like. So
now, it's quite pricey though. If you compare renting a machine for a period for 3 years versus buying a laptop, at the same sort of spec, you are spending more money on the hosted. Mm-hmm. But I'm hoping that the experience is that much better for the user and less maintenance requirement for the IT support people. And I took mine into account with having to ship machines and return them at least once each way. And it's still more expensive than that. But as I say, hopefully you get the benefit of the maintainability. And also if you're not using the machine and you switch it off for a month, you get the money back. That was one of the questions I've asked, and I haven't really got clarity on that without losing the machine image.
Yeah.
Well, you shouldn't in theory, but that's a longer discussion.
Yeah. How long can you have it off for? But yeah.
Well, so you're paying a monthly fee. So I think the entry level one was about £30, which I can't remember what the spec was. But in essence, you're paying a once-off fee for the month. So whether you turn it off and on for the whole month doesn't matter. Whereas if you're doing that with Azure Windows Desktop, that's resource related. So if you've got machines going up and down, you'll see ups and downs in your billing as well. Where this got interesting is you might have a seasonal thing where you're going to bring 6 people on during the data capturing season. You can spin up 6 machines, use them for 6 months, and then take them offline when they leave, and then you don't have to worry about the 6 laptops you just bought. Mm-hmm. Which is our situation. We hired a whole lot of people in the UK, which we don't have anymore. We've moved that all to other countries, and now the people using their own devices, which opens up another security pane. Mm-hmm. So we've had to put Intune on all of them, lock them down, etc. So those personal devices have become sort of hybrid devices. We managed by us, but it's still their device while they work for us. But now, if I can get the WVD stuff, the Windows 365 stuff working, then I can say, look, you don't have to use your personal device anymore. Just log into this machine, and all your stuff is there, in theory. And when you leave, we just disable that machine, or take it offline and keep an image of it. So I'm excited from those sorts of points of view. Really think it will help secure the environment and provide a better working experience.
Yeah. I mean, even if you just lost your device, it wouldn't be such a dire situation. So.
Well, so when we did it at one of the banks, that was one of the biggest, business case elements. It wasn't so much saving money. It was data leak protection. It was removing, investment bankers and the like carrying laptops around and losing them while they were traveling. And also, it is the maintenance thing as well, supporting that device. The minute someone's traveling and they've got a problem with that device, then someone's got to help them. Someone might have to go after them. It just creates a whole lot of pain. And we had all sorts of fancy tools for like setting up a VPN to run the minute they're connected from outside, and then having a self-help thing on the device. But, you still have someone that's not comfortable with that, and they still have to phone in and all that kind of stuff. So having a virtual device that they're used to connecting from anywhere, made a lot more sense. And then you can also roll out new builds quite quickly with patching, etc. So, there's a lot of pros to it, but not all of it's financially pros. And I find some of it's more expensive directly. You can see the cost of it. Whereas when you have laptops and that floating around, the cost of a user not being productive on it is a lot easier to hide, because they're not affected. They're not affecting everyone else, and they also, unless you're monitoring them, they're off the grid in some senses.
Yeah.
And a lot of companies don't monitor to the level that you and I know is possible. So they don't even know what they don't know. Yeah.
Definitely. A lot of guessing on what the experience is really like in the environment.
Yeah, exactly. Alrighty. Thanks, Heather. It was good to catch up.
Yep. Talk to you next week.
Look out for that episode.
Yep.
Cool. Cheers. Have a good week.
You too. Bye, Ryan.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Heather Bicknell is our producer and editor. Thank you, Heather, for your hard work on this episode. Please subscribe to the series and rate us on iTunes or the Google Play Store. Follow us on Twitter @the DWW Podcast. The show notes and transcripts will be available on the website www.digitalworkspace.works. Please also visit our website www.digitalworkspace.works and subscribe to our newsletter. And lastly, if you found this episode useful, please share with your friends or colleagues.